two birthdays. Ayleen, please stand up. April,
Ayleen.
please stand up. Yay!
Happy birthday to you. Thank you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear April. Happy birthday to you. This is a birthday song. It isn't very long.
Dottie, real quickly, Maria was out in the hallway when we did the mothers, and she has 2 new grandbabies this week.
Yay! Come on in.
So she is preferring not to. I've asked her. Yeah. And have the grandbabies before? And give us the names.
Victoria and Maria.
Alrighty, good morning, everyone. Good morning. And there is a phrase, namaste, which means the divine in me, or it's paraphrased many ways, but the divine in me acknowledges and recognizes the divine in you. And while it may seem kind of lighthearted, I actually mean it in a very serious and sacred way, that the phrase came to me, Mom-maste. The divine mother in me acknowledges and honors the divine mother in you. And really, everyone carries that. We all carry the masculine and feminine aspect in its absolute, most divine and beautiful form. So that means no matter what physical form you carry in this life, whether or not you have given birth in this life, you carry the divine mother energy. And in that, I honor each and every one of you for that. Because it's not always easy. Because there is an aspect of that particular love that, well, when I first told my mother that I was pregnant, she looked at me and she said, I want you to repeat 2 things to yourself every single day. First, they grow and they go. Second, God is not giving you this child. He's only loaning you this child. And so every day since then, I have made it sort of a personal mantra. And it has helped. When it reached the point where, you know, they were no longer, when I see King and little Ellie, and I remember when they were that age, and it seemed that they would be that way forever. And then in a split second, they were grown. And asking for the keys to the car, and then wrecking it. So the idea that I had to accept that I was no longer management, I was a consultant. And that can be a very difficult thing when your child is expressing things to you, and everything in you is wanting to give them the answer, to give them, it's like, no, benefit from my experience. You don't have to suffer. You don't have to learn this the hard way. And yet they seem determined and to learn it the hard way. And then I realized by my learning it the hard way, because I didn't listen as much as I could have, but it made the lesson mine. It brought it to a reality for me. Why do I want to deny them the opportunity to struggle and to be afraid? Because I know in the end it will make them stronger. There is a story called A Push. And the first time I read it, it just really touched me. And so I'd like to share that with you. And it's a story of a mother eagle. The eagle gently coaxed her offspring toward the edge of the nest. Her heart quivered with conflicting emotions as she felt their resistance to her persistent nudging. Why does the thrill of soaring have to begin with the fear of falling, she thought. This ageless question was still unanswered for her. As in the tradition of her species, her nest was located on the shelf of a sheer rock face. Below, there was nothing but air to support the wings of each child. It is possible that this time it will not work, she thought. Despite her fear, the eagle knew it was time. Her parental mission was all but complete. There remained one final task, the push. The eagle drew courage from an innate wisdom. Until her children discovered their wings, there was no purpose in their lives. Until they learned how to soar, they would fail to understand the privilege it was to have been born an eagle. The push was the greatest gift she had to offer. It was her supreme act of love. So one by one, she pushed them and they flew.
Yay, babies! Yay, they flew!
Now, just sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes, they fail to fly. But that doesn't mean that it should not be attempted over and over again. That does not mean that we don't embrace the fact that they grow and they go. For them to live the lives they're meant to live, they have to be pushed. They have to be nudged. At one point after my divorce, I had a very, very, very hard relationship with both my sons. And they took out a lot of their pain on me. And while I understood that that's what they were doing, it still hurt. And they went out of their way, it seemed, to be hurtful. And one day, when they were being particularly hurtful, and all of the discussions and the, we can do this better, and calling on all the spiritual tools I knew, I only had one tool left. And as I said, on a day that was particularly hurtful, I looked at them. My youngest was 18, my oldest was 20. It was June 1st. And I said, December 31st. And they said, what? And I said, you're out of here. You are no longer going to be welcome in my home after that. You believe that you can live your life so well without me. Figure it out. I didn't even recognize the words that were coming out of my mouth. I never envisioned that I would ever, ever say that to one of my sons, who I love more than life. I went into the bathroom and I took a shower and I sat on the floor of the shower and I cried. And as each day came closer and they were not preparing anything, it's like, guys, you got 6 months. And then I told myself, no more discussion. It's their business. It is their life. So ultimately, they got to the end of November and came to me and informed me, well, we're going to need an extension. And I said, too bad. December 31st, you are out of here. So they got a bit nervous, and suddenly I was mommy. Suddenly they were cleaning up and they were doing things, but I knew if I went back on what I said, I was going to deny not only them an opportunity to grow, but myself.
Yes. Yep.
I had to honor who I was and to hold them to this and be in integrity. And sometimes being in integrity with our children means that we have to do the one thing we never, ever, ever want to do, which is stop being the safety net. And, it came and they moved out. They moved into their grandmother's house about 3 blocks away, where their father was living. He had told them that they couldn't come, and I said, it's not his house, go talk to your grandmother. And she, of course you can live here. But either way, I knew I had to stick to what I said. Many believe that we create a spiritual contract before we ever come into this life with the people who are going to be in our lives. Our parents, our children, our grandchildren. We have a spiritual contract that's established before we even get here. And understanding when that contract changes. The contract has different parts to it. The first part of the contract is we bring them into this world, we take care of them, we nurture them, and then there's the next part of the contract where we begin giving them the tools that they need to go out and be in the world on their own. Dottie referenced all the butterflies, and what came to me was, we become, as parents, as mothers, as spiritual mothers, we become the cocoon. And it's not just when we're carrying them. We remain the cocoon as they develop. And if you were to open up a chrysalis, you wouldn't see, either a caterpillar or a butterfly. You'd basically see this mosh and this mess of something, because the caterpillar completely disassembles. It completely breaks down, and it is slowly reformed so that when the butterfly emerges, that's the end product. But it had to be completely taken apart and, re-engineered. And in a way, that's what we do, even as they're growing up, as they're making their mistakes, as they're testing every single last ounce of patience we have. They are being reformed, and we become that safe place for them to do that. Another thing about the butterfly is that if you were, even when it was fully formed, if you were to open up the chrysalis to try to help it, the butterfly would die. Because it is that last struggle to break out of the chrysalis on its own that actually is that point of life for the butterfly. And as we watch our children grow and move forward, and we see that day coming close when they are going to have to struggle, when they're going to have to face their fear, when they're going to have to move to the edge of the nest and see nothing but plummeting ahead of them, when we move behind them and gently move them forward and give them that push, because ultimately what we're saying to them is, I believe in you. I believe in you more than you can believe in yourself right now. And by giving them that is the ultimate act of love. And in a way, it is the ultimate sacrifice, because we're giving up part of a relationship that we will never truly have back. Once they go out there, sometimes they go and they move back home. But even then, it's still that first time that they step out on their own, that changes the relationship fundamentally. And it is something that I grieve sometimes. I miss the days when, they believed that there was nothing mom couldn't do. And there was nothing that they got into that I couldn't protect them. And I have to accept that I can't be that for them anymore. But I trust that they've been given the tools to be able to do it. Another interesting piece, I'm wearing a bracelet, and many of you may remember there was an organization called TOPS, which was Take Off Pound Sensibly. My mother was in it. She had struggled with her weight for a long time. And as I was looking for something, a bracelet to wear, I came across this. And I thought, my mother was not a huggy person. She was not a physical person. But there was never a point when I didn't know for certain that she loved me. By all the things that she did, by all the things that she was, and by her energy. And at the point when she had cancer and it had gotten into the brain, our roles reversed. And spending my whole life as the child, I suddenly found myself the mother of my mother. She needed me. She depended on me. She wasn't clear, and she was often afraid. And by being able to look at motherhood from really both sides, from being the child to being the mother of my mother, it allowed me to see motherhood in a much bigger way. Because ultimately, for my mother, she had nurtured me my whole life. She saw me from the beginning of my life all the way through. And then I became the mother that would see her through to the end of this life. I had a chance to participate in her rebirth into her spiritual form. And it felt in a way as though I had carried and nurtured her and took care of her until that moment when she was ready to soar. And yes, it was hard letting her go. But I knew that that last push, and that last push was when I told her, Mom, it's okay. It's time. You go, and you be back with Dad and with Angie, and be everything that God meant you to be, which was spirit. So, I have one more thing that I'd like to share. And get the dollar store glasses on.
Yay!
I love the dollar store glasses. I'm telling you, because I would lose them, and it's like, I don't feel so bad if it was only $1. Okay. The mother eagle had tried every means to induce the little one to leave the nest, but he was afraid. Suddenly, as if discouraged, she rose well above him. The little fellow stood on the edge of the nest, looking down at the plunge he dare not take. There was a sharp cry from behind, which made him alert, tense as a watch spring. The next instant, the mother eagle had swooped, striking the nest at his feet, sending his support of twigs and himself with them out into the air together.
Yikes!
He was afloat now, afloat on the blue air in spite of himself and flapping lustily for life. Over him, under him, beside him, hovered the mother on tireless wings, calling softly that she was there. But the awful fear of the depths and the lance tops of the spruces was upon the little one. His flapping grew more wild. He fell faster and faster. Suddenly, more in fright than because he had lost his strength, he lost his balance and tipped head downward in the air. It was all over now. He folded his wings to be dashed in pieces among the trees. Then, like a flash, the old mother eagle shot under him. His despairing feet touched her broad shoulders between her wings. He righted himself, rested an instant, found his head. Then she dropped like a shot from under him, leaving him to his own wings. The eaglet was now in the top of a great pine, and a handful of feathers, torn out by his claws, hovered slowly down after. The best thing we can give our children is their wings. Maybe we grew up in a house where we didn't feel that we received that. Maybe we raised our children and looked back and saw places where maybe we could have done some stuff different. Another thing my mother said was, she never did anything because she thought it was bad for me. And everything she did was the best thing she knew to do in the moment. And while it may be very challenging, sometimes if we can remember that, we can bring forgiveness in. And no matter how old we are, we can always find our wings. Thank you.
Thank you.